Welcome to Wednesday of Holy Week. Today, in the passage that we'll be studying, Mark chapter 14, verses 53 through 72, Jesus is on trial before the religious leaders. The Pharisees and the Sadducees have been arrested. But this is a culmination of several years of conflict between Jesus and these men, which has really reached its peak this week, as Jesus has done a number of things to offend them. At the beginning of Holy Week, on Palm Sunday, Jesus entered the temple, which was the responsibility of the Jewish leadership to run. They're the ones that collected the money. And Jesus goes in there in his prophetic mode, turns over the tables, and tells them, "My house of prayer has become a den of robbers." This was a direct attack upon the Pharisees. Then later on in the week, the Pharisees come and confront him with questions, trying to trap him, trying to either get him in trouble with the authorities, the Roman authorities, when he asked the question, should we pay taxes to Caesar or not? Or trying to offend the people by asking the question about the resurrection. In both cases, Jesus answers them in a way that thwarts their plans to do him harm. Jesus, during this time, says some very damaging things. He talks about the Pharisees and the fact that they are like whitewashed tombs, looking good on the outside, but with dead bones inside. He talks about how they will travel over land and sea to make a convert and make him a greater servant of hell. These are harsh, critical words. It's no wonder that the religious leaders are very angry with Jesus. This doesn't fit the picture of Jesus as the mild and meek person. But Jesus is fulfilling, particularly when it comes to the religious leaders, his role as a prophet. And what do we know about prophets in biblical days? A lot of them ended up dead. They were rejected. Their messages were hard to hear. And the people in charge rejected the message and often rejected the man himself. And that's exactly what happens to Jesus. And so when he's arrested and brought before the Sanhedrin, the religious tribunal, this is the culmination of these weeks and months of animosity. And finally, when the crowds are away and he is arrested in the middle of the night, they can do it safely without creating a riot, which is what they most feared if they arrested him when he was in public. So in this trial, they challenge Jesus, confess who he is, and eventually does. But what I want you to see in this is the conflict that took place and the unwillingness of the religious leaders to recognize who Jesus was. Their failure to accept his message. And we have to ask ourselves, when Jesus says hard things to us through Scripture or through us personally, are we responsive to it? Do we hear it? Or do we become frustrated and ignore or reject the guidance and counsel of Jesus? Will you listen to the hard truth he speaks to you? As you conclude this time, there's a song by a gentleman named Rich Mullins, "Why Do the Nations Rage?" And it comes from Psalm 2, but it speaks about the nations, including the religious leaders, raging against Jesus. Listen to that, and may you have a blessed day.